One more snowy camping story that you absolutely need to watch before going to bed. After watching this, I guarantee you'll sleep like a baby. My guess is that your phone battery is around 45% right now, and you're probably lying on your side while scrolling. If I guessed right, let me know. And if I'm wrong, leave a photo of what you're doing right now on the right side. Alright, enough with the pointless stuff. Let's put all that aside and begin tonight's relaxing journey. Sihai, a man who has spent years traveling from place to place, once again left home and set out on a new adventure. This time, he brought his dog along and ventured deep into a remote mountain forest. Winter was quickly approaching, and he wanted to enjoy the breathtaking snowfall. So, he decided to build a stone shelter with his own hands, one strong enough to protect him from the brutal cold. First, he cleared away the dry branches and loose rocks scattered across the ground. Then, he marked out the outline of his stone shelter on a flat piece of land. They say even a 9-story building begins with the ground beneath it, and if this shelter was going to be strong and safe, there was absolutely no room for cutting corners when it came to the foundation. He dug deep into the ground and buried large rocks firmly into the earth. Fortunately, natural stones were scattered all over the mountains, making them the perfect building material. But during construction, a massive boulder suddenly came rolling down the mountain. It narrowly missed his dog, who was standing nearby. The incident immediately made him much more cautious. The winter winds in this forest were absolutely bone-chilling. The only way to keep those freezing winds out was to build thick, solid stone walls. He placed the largest rocks along the bottom layer. Then, he carefully shaped and adjusted the irregular stones so they would fit tightly together, leaving as few gaps as possible. Knowing he would need a reliable source of heat during winter, Sihai decided to build a fireplace inside the shelter. He left an opening in the wall directly opposite the entrance for the fireplace. Using smaller stones and layers of mud, he slowly built a tall chimney that would allow the smoke to escape. The large fireplace would be enough to keep the shelter warm, and it was about to become his most important weapon against the freezing winter. But as construction continued, a thick white fog began spreading across the distant mountains. Then, much earlier than expected, heavy snow started falling. The shelter wasn't finished yet, so Sihai urgently needed to gather some dry firewood to keep himself safe. Even the birds in the forest had nowhere to hide. They continued chirping nervously from the branches as the snowstorm suddenly intensified. The freezing wind began slipping through his clothes and chilling him to the bone. With no other option, Sihai climbed into the unfinished shelter, lit a fire, and stayed close to the fireplace to keep warm. As the flames slowly grew and the warmth began spreading through the shelter, the fear and anxiety in his heart gradually started to fade away. The snow continued falling outside, but he couldn't afford to stop construction. Using the warmth from the fireplace, he continued working on the chimney. For miles in every direction, this half-finished stone shelter was the only place that could protect him from the raging snowstorm. As he watched the flames dancing in front of him, he realized that this little bit of warmth was his greatest source of courage against the freezing cold. Thankfully, the heavy snowfall didn't last forever. When the weather briefly cleared, Sihai finally had some precious time to finish strengthening the shelter. Cold air was still leaking through the gaps between the thick stone walls. So, he mixed mud and carefully filled every crack, sealing the walls as tightly as possible. It might have looked like a small detail, but this simple step would make a huge difference in keeping the shelter warm. While there was still some daylight left, Sihai stopped working for a moment and took a short break with his loyal dog, who had been by his side throughout the entire journey. Deep in this lonely wilderness, his dog was his only companion and his greatest source of comfort. Next, he began working on the roof. He selected thick, sturdy logs to serve as the main support beams. The wooden framework was strong enough that he no longer had to worry about the weight of heavy snowfall collapsing the roof. Along the eastern wall, he also created a sleeping area that would eventually become his bed. Just as the shelter's entrance was finally completed, snow began falling from the sky once again. Winter had officially arrived. Sihai quickly covered the roof with a thick, waterproof layer to protect it from snow and rain. He secured it tightly with stakes driven into the ground, adding layer after layer of reinforcement, and finally, after all that hard work, the stone shelter was completely finished, strong enough for him to safely survive the winter. He couldn't wait any longer. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. A wave of warm air immediately hit his face. His dog was already lying peacefully on the bed, while firewood continued burning inside the fireplace. The entire little shelter was now filled with warmth. After surviving the brutal snowstorms and freezing temperatures, the stone shelter deep in the wilderness was finally complete. And now, Sihai's new life in the mountains had officially begun, a quiet winter life surrounded by snow, fire, and the peaceful beauty of the wilderness.